Elliot's boots crunched against the frost-covered gravel, each step a rebellion against the ghosts of Ashwood, Ohio. 10 years ago, this town had spat him out like a bitter seed, his father's voice thundering, "No son of mine will live like that." Now, at 29 he was back, not by choice but because death had a way of pulling strings even the living couldn't cut. The air was sharp, slicing through his worn denim jacket as he stood before the old Victorian house on Maple Street. Its paint peeled like memories, and the windows stared blankly, as if ashamed of the past. Elliot's breath clouded in the November chill, his hazel eyes scanning the porch where he'd once sat with his father, fishing stories out of silence. That was before the truth came out, before "I'm gay" became a grenade that shattered their family. He wasn't here for nostalgia. His father, Richard, had died 2 weeks ago, and the lawyer's call had been curt. "You're in the will." Elliot hadn't believed it. Why would a man who'd disowned him leave him anything? Yet here he was, key in hand, heart pounding like it was 19 again, and he was begging for acceptance. The door creaked open, revealing a house frozen in time. Dust danced in the slanted light, and the smell of old wood and regret filled his lungs. Elliot's gaze fell on the living room wall, where a faded family photo still hung him, his father and his mother, who'd passed when he was 12. He traced the frame with a trembling finger, the weight of a decade's absence pressing against his chest. As he wandered through the house, memories clawed at him. The kitchen where his father taught him to flip pancakes. The attic where he'd hidden his first love letter from a boy named Jamie, terrified of being caught. Each room whispered of a life he'd been forced to abandon. He wasn't sure what he was looking for. Closure, maybe, or proof that his father had regretted the words that had banished him. In the study, Elliot found a stack of unopened letters addressed to him, postmarked from years ago. His heart lurched. Had his father tried to reach out? He tore one open, the paper brittle under his fingers. "Elliot," it began. "I don't know how to say this," the words blurred as tears welled. But before he could read further, a hollow thud echoed from the wall behind the desk. Frowning, he tapped the wood panel. It sounded off, hollow. His pulse quickened as he pressed harder, and with a groan, the panel shifted, revealing a narrow compartment. Inside was a metal box, rusted at the edges, with a note taped to it, "For Elliot." His hands shook as he opened it, revealing a folded document. A will, dated a year after he'd been kicked out. "I, Richard Hayes, leave my estate to my son, Elliot Hayes, on one condition." The words blurred as Elliot's vision swam. A condition? His father had always loved his ultimatums. But before he could read further, the front door slammed open, and a voice cut through the silence. "Elliot, what the hell are you doing here?" It was Marcus, 32, his high school best friend, and the man who'd once held his heart in secret. Marcus stood in the doorway, his dark eyes wide with shock, his broad shoulders filling the frame. He was different now, harder, with a scar above his brow and a wedding ring glinting on his finger. Elliot's stomach twisted. Marcus had stayed in Ashwood, built a life, while Elliot had run to Chicago, chasing freedom and nursing wounds. "I could ask you the same," Elliot said, voice steady despite the storm inside. "My father's dead. This is my house now." Marcus's jaw tightened. "It's not that simple. There's something you need to know." Elliot clutched the will, its edges biting into his palm. Whatever Marcus was hiding, whatever his father's condition was, he knew one thing. Coming back to Ashwood was about to unravel everything. Elliot and Marcus stood frozen, the air between them thick with unspoken history. Marcus's gaze flicked to the will in Elliot's hand, and his expression darkened. "You shouldn't be digging through that yet," he said, stepping closer. His voice was low, urgent, like he was guarding a secret too heavy to share. "What's it to you?" Elliot shot back, his tone sharper than intended. He hadn't seen Marcus in a decade. Not since the night they'd kissed behind the old mill, hearts racing under the stars. That memory stung now, tainted by the years of silence and Marcus's apparent new life. Marcus ran a hand through his short black hair, frustration etched into his features. "Your dad, he wasn't who you thought he was at the end. There's stuff he kept from everyone. For me, too." Elliot's grip on the will tightened. "Then why are you here, Marcus? Why do you care what I find?" Marcus hesitated, his eyes searching Elliot's face. "Because I owe him, and because I owe you." The words hit like a punch. Elliot wanted to ask what he meant, to demand answers, but the weight of the will in his hand pulled him back. He unfolded it, scanning the condition. Elliot must reconcile with the town he left behind. What the hell did that mean? Reconcile with a place that had shunned him? With people who'd turned their backs when his father threw him out? Marcus stepped closer, close enough that Elliot could smell the faint cedar of his cologne. "You don't get it, do you?" Marcus said softly. "Your dad changed, Elliot. He regretted what he did, but he was too stubborn to admit it outright." Elliot's throat tightened. "Then why didn't he call? Why didn't he come find me?" Marcus looked away, his jaw working. "He tried. Those letters, he wrote them, but he never sent them. He thought you were better off without him." The room spun. Elliot sank into the dusty armchair, the will crumpling in his lap. His father had written to him, had wanted to reach out, but pride or shame had kept the letters locked away. And now this will, with its cryptic condition, felt like a final test. Marcus knelt beside him, his hand hovering near Elliot's shoulder before pulling back. "There's more," he said. "The town, they're fighting over this house. Your dad was working on something big before he died. A community project. People think you're here to sell it off." Elliot laughed bitterly. "Let them think what they want. I don't owe this town anything." "You sure about that?" Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. "Because I think you came back for a reason, and not just for that will." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the years melted away. Elliot saw the boy he'd loved, the one who'd promised they'd leave Ashwood together. But that boy was gone, replaced by a man with a ring on his finger and secrets in his eyes. "I need time," Elliot said finally, standing, "to read this, to figure out what he wanted." Marcus nodded, stepping back. "Just don't do it alone, okay? I'm still here, Elliot, whether you believe it or not." As Marcus left, Elliot stared at the will. Its words a puzzle he wasn't sure he wanted to solve. But one thing was clear. Ashwood wasn't done with him yet, and neither was Marcus. The next morning, Elliot woke to the sound of a lawnmower roaring outside. Sunlight streamed through the cracked blinds, illuminating the study where he'd fallen asleep, the will still clutched in his hand. His neck ached, but the pain in his chest was worse, a gnawing mix of grief and questions that refused to settle. He stepped onto the porch, squinting against the glare. Across the street, a woman in her 50s with graying curls waved at him, her smile hesitant. "You must be Elliot," she called. "I'm Clara, your dad's neighbor. Sorry about the noise. Trying to keep the place tidy for you." Elliot forced a nod, unsure how to respond to kindness from a town that had once turned its back. "Thanks," he mumbled, retreating inside before she could say more. Clara's warmth felt like a trap, a reminder of the community he'd never belonged to. Back in the study, he spread the will across the desk, its condition haunting him. Reconcile with the town. What did that even mean? Forgive the people who'd whispered behind his back? Pretend the past hadn't happened? He shoved the document aside and grabbed the stack of letters, tearing into another one. "Elliot, I was wrong. His father's handwriting confessed. I thought I was protecting you, but I was just scared. I hope one day you'll come home. The words cut deep, each one a knife twisting in old wounds. His father had been scared of what? Losing face? Losing him? A knock at the door startled him. It was Clara, holding a casserole dish, her eyes kind but probing. Thought you might be hungry, she said, stepping inside uninvited. Your dad talked about you, you know. Toward the end, he'd sit on that porch and wonder where you were. Elliot's jaw tightened. He knew where I was. He just didn't care enough to find me. Clara's smile faltered. He cared, Elliot. He just didn't know how to fix it. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Marcus. Meet me at the community center. 2 p.m. You need to see this. The Ashwood Community Center was a squat brick building downtown. Its sign faded but proud. Inside, Marcus stood by a bulletin board covered in blueprints and notes. He looked up as Elliot approached, his expression unreadable. This was your dad's project, he said, pointing to a sketch of a renovated building. He wanted to turn this place into a youth center, a safe space for kids who felt like they didn't belong. Elliot's breath caught. A safe space. The irony wasn't lost on him. Why didn't he tell me? Marcus shrugged, his voice soft. He thought you'd hate him too much to care. The blueprints showed a vibrant space, art rooms, a library, a counseling office. Richard's handwriting was scrawled in the margins. For kids like Elliot. The words hit like a tidal wave, and Elliot turned away, blinking back tears. There's a problem, though, Marcus said, breaking the silence. The town council wants to sell this land to developers. Your dad's death left the project in limbo, and now they're saying the house is tied to it. If you sell, the youth center dies. Elliot's head spun. The house, the will, the project, it was all connected. His father had left him a legacy, but it came with a town full of people who'd rejected him. Why should I care about their kids? He snapped. They didn't care about me. Marcus's eyes softened. Because you're better than that. And because your dad believed you were. The words lingered as they left the center, walking side by side down Main Street. Passers-by stared, some whispering, others offering cautious nods. Elliot felt like an outsider in his own skin, but Marcus's presence was a quiet anchor. Remember that summer at the lake? Marcus said suddenly, his voice low. We thought we could run away, start over somewhere new. Elliot's heart ached. Yeah, then you stayed, and I left. Marcus stopped, turning to face him. I stayed because I thought I could change this place. For us, for kids like us. The air crackled with tension, their shared past hanging between them. Elliot wanted to ask about the ring on Marcus's finger, about the life he'd built without him, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he said, I need to know what's in those letters. All of them. Marcus nodded. Then let's read them together. Back at the house, they sat on the floor, letters spread out like a map of regrets. Each one revealed more of Richard's transformation. His guilt, his quiet advocacy for the youth center, his fear that Elliot would never forgive him. As the sun set, Marcus's hand brushed Elliot's, and for a moment, neither pulled away. But the moment shattered when a brick crashed through the window, glass scattering across the floor. A note was tied to it. Sell and leave or you'll regret it. Elliot's heart pounded as he stared at the shattered glass, the note's words burning into his mind. Marcus grabbed his arm, pulling him away from the window. Stay back, he said, voice steady but eyes wide with alarm. Outside, tires screeched, and a truck sped off into the night. Who the hell was that? Elliot demanded, his hands shaking as he picked up the note. The handwriting was sloppy, angry, but the message was clear. Someone in Ashwood didn't want him here. Marcus scanned the street through the broken window, his jaw tight. Probably someone from the council or their buddies. They've been pushing to sell the land for months. Your dad fought them tooth and nail. Elliot's stomach churned. And now they think I'm the easy target. He crumpled the note, anger flaring. Let them try. I'm not running again. Marcus's gaze softened, but there was worry there, too. You sure about that? This town, it doesn't let go of grudges. Elliot didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed a broom and started sweeping the glass, the repetitive motion grounding him. Marcus joined in silently, their movements synchronized like they'd never been apart. When they finished, Marcus said, "You can't stay here tonight. Come to my place." Elliot hesitated, the sight of Marcus's wedding ring flashing in his mind. "Your wife won't mind?" Marcus's face tightened, a shadow passing over it. "No wife. Not anymore. It's complicated." The words hung heavy, but Elliot didn't press. Not yet. They locked up the house and drove to Marcus's small apartment downtown, a modest place with books stacked on every surface and a single photo of Marcus and a woman. His ex, maybe? Tucked into a corner. As they sat on the couch, Marcus handed Elliot a beer. "You need to know what you're up against," he said. "The council's led by Tom Brennan. He's got developers in his pocket, and they want your dad's land for a strip mall. Your dad's project was the only thing standing in their way." Elliot took a swig, the bitterness matching his mood. "So they're threatening me to sell. What's the youth center to them?" "It's not just the center," Marcus said. "It's what it stands for. Your dad wanted it to be a place for kids like you. Kids who got kicked out, shamed, or worse. Brennan's crowd doesn't like that. They want Ashwood to stay traditional." Elliot's chest tightened. His father had been building a legacy for him, a way to make up for the past. But the town's resistance felt like history repeating itself. "What about you?" he asked. "You're part of this town. Where do you stand?" Marcus leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I'm with you, Elliot. Always have been." The words hit harder than the brick through the window. Elliot wanted to believe them, but the years apart had built walls higher than any in his father's house. "Then why didn't you come with me?" he asked, voice breaking. "When I left, you stayed." Marcus's eyes glistened. "I thought I could fix things here. I thought if I stayed, I could make Ashwood a place where we could have been together. But I was wrong, and I lost you because of it." The room felt too small, the air too thick. Elliot stood, pacing. "You didn't lose me, Marcus. You let me go." Marcus rose, closing the distance between them. "I know, and I've regretted it every day since." Their faces were inches apart, the pull between them electric. But before anything could happen, Elliot's phone buzzed. It was Clara. "Council meeting tomorrow. They're voting on the land. You need to be there." The next day, the town hall was packed, the air thick with tension. Elliot stood at the back, Marcus at his side, as Tom Brennan, a burly man in his 60s with a smug grin, addressed the crowd. "Richard Hayes's project was a pipe dream," he said. "This town needs progress, not charity. We're voting to sell the land." Elliot's blood boiled. He stepped forward, clutching the will. "My father wanted that land for a youth center," he said, his voice carrying over the murmurs. "And I'm here to make sure it happens." The room erupted, some cheering, others shouting objections. Brennan's eyes narrowed. "You don't belong here, Hayes. Sell the house and go back to wherever you came from." Marcus stepped forward, his voice steady. "He's got every right to be here, and so does that youth center." As the crowd argued, Elliot felt a spark of hope. Maybe his father's will wasn't just a condition. It was a challenge to fight for something bigger than himself. But the glint in Brennan's, I told him the battle was far from over. The council meeting left Elliot reeling, the crowd's voices still echoing in his head, as he and Marcus walked back to the house. The vote had been delayed, thanks to Marcus's quick defense and Clara rallying a few supporters, but Brennan's influence loomed large. Elliot felt the weight of the will in his pocket, its condition now a lifeline. Reconcile with the town. He wasn't sure he could, or if he even wanted to. Back at the house, they boarded up the broken window, the silence between them heavy but not uncomfortable. Marcus broke it first. "You did good back there," he said, hammering a nail into place. "Standing up like that, it's not easy." Elliot shrugged, his hands busy with a piece of plywood. "Didn't feel like I had a choice. This is bigger than me now." Marcus paused, his hammer still. "It always was. Your dad knew that." The mention of his father stirred something in Elliot. He pulled out the will again, rereading the condition. "Reconcile," he muttered. "How do I reconcile with a town that threw a brick through my window?" Marcus set the hammer down, his expression serious. "Not everyone here's like Brennan. There are people who want what your dad wanted. People who've changed. Like you?" Elliot asked, half challenging. Marcus's lips twitched, a sad smile. "I'm trying. I stayed because I thought I could make a difference. But I didn't realize how much I'd lose until you were gone." Elliot's heart thudded. He wanted to ask about the ring, about the life Marcus had lived without him, but fear held him back. Instead, he said, "Help me go through the rest of these letters. I need to understand him." They spent hours reading, each letter a piece of Richard's heart laid bare. One described a night he'd attended a PFLAG meeting, listening to parents grapple with their children's identities. Another admitted he'd driven to Chicago once, hoping to find Elliot, but turned back, convinced his son was better off without him. The final letter was the hardest. "I'm proud of you, Elliot. I just wish I'd said it sooner." Tears streamed down Elliot's face, and Marcus's hand found his, steady and warm. This time, neither pulled away. "He loved you," Marcus said softly. "He just didn't know how to show it." Elliot nodded, unable to speak. The letters were a bridge to a father he'd thought he'd lost forever. But they also raised questions. Why hide the will? Why tie it to the youth center? Their moment was interrupted by a knock. It was Clara, her face grim. "Brennan's calling an emergency vote tomorrow," she said. "He's got enough votes to push it through unless we can sway the council." Elliot's resolve hardened. "Then we fight. For my dad. For the kids who need that center." The next day they rallied supporters, Clara, a few teachers, even some kids who'd heard about the youth center. At the town hall, Elliot stood before the council, his voice steady. "My father wanted a place where kids could feel safe, where they wouldn't be kicked out for who they are. I know what that feels like, and I'm not letting you take that away from them." The room was silent, then erupted in applause from some, jeers from others. Brennan stood, his face red. "This is about progress, not your personal vendetta. Sell the house, or we'll make things harder for you." Before Elliot could respond, a young woman in her 20s stood up. "I'm Lena," she said. "I was one of those kids. If it wasn't for Mr. Hayes, I'd be on the streets. That center's worth more than your strip mall." More voices joined, stories of Richard's quiet kindness spilling out. Elliot's throat tightened as he realized his father had been fighting for others like him, even when he couldn't fight for his own son. The vote was close, but they won a delay, enough time to gather more support. As they left, Marcus grabbed Elliot's hand, squeezing it. "You're doing it," he said. "You're reconciling." Elliot looked at him, the warmth of his touch reigniting old sparks. "Maybe," he said, "but I'm not doing it alone." That night, as they sat by the lake, Marcus finally spoke about the ring. "It was my sister's," he said. "She gave it to me before she passed. I wear it to remember her." Relief flooded Elliot, followed by a rush of something deeper. As the stars reflected on the water, Marcus leaned closer, and this time, Elliot didn't pull away. The kiss by the lake was soft, tentative, like stepping onto thin ice. Elliot's heart raced as Marcus's lips met his, a decade's worth of longing and regret melting into that single moment. When they pulled apart, the world felt different, brighter, but heavier, too, with the weight of what lay ahead. The final council vote was in 2 days, and Elliot knew it was their last chance to save the youth center. He and Marcus spent every moment rallying support, knocking on doors, and sharing his father's vision. Clara organized a petition, and Lena spread the word online, her posts gaining traction beyond Ashwood. The town was divided, but the tide was shifting. At the house, Elliot found one last letter, tucked inside the metal box. It was short, written in his father's shaky hand. "Elliot, if you're reading this, you've found the will. The youth center is my apology. Make it yours, too." The words settled into him, a call to action he couldn't ignore. He showed the letter to Marcus, who nodded. "Your dad knew you'd come back. He knew you'd fight." The night before the vote, Elliot couldn't sleep. He wandered the house, stopping at the wall where he'd found the will. On impulse, he tapped it again, and another panel shifted. Inside was a small notebook, his father's journal. Pages detailed his plans for the youth center, his regrets, and a list of names. People he'd helped, kids he'd supported, all in secret. One entry stopped Elliot cold. "Met Marcus today. He's still here, still fighting. I wish I'd been as brave as him." Elliot closed the journal, tears falling. His father had seen Marcus's strength, his quiet rebellion against Ashwood's prejudices. It was a legacy they could both carry forward. The council meeting was chaos. Brennan's supporters shouted, but so did the youth center's allies. Elliot took the podium, holding the journal and the will. "My father made mistakes," he said, voice steady. "But he spent his final years trying to make things right. This youth center isn't just a building. It's a promise to every kid who feels like they don't belong. I was that kid, and I'm here to keep that promise." Lena stood, then Clara, then others, their stories weaving a tapestry of need and hope. Marcus spoke last, his voice raw. "Richard Hayes gave me a job when I came out and my family turned away. He gave me a purpose. Let's give that to others." The vote was agonizingly close, but they won. The youth center would stand. Cheers erupted, and Elliot felt Marcus's hand find his, a silent vow. Months later, the youth center opened, its walls painted with murals of hope. Elliot and Marcus stood together at the ribbon cutting, their hands clasped openly for the first time in Ashwood. The town wasn't perfect. Brennan's glare from the crowd proved that, but it was changing. Elliot looked at the sign above the door, Hayes Youth Center, his father's apology, his own redemption. He'd come back to Ashwood expecting to bury the past, but instead, he'd built a future. As kids streamed inside, laughing and free, Elliot leaned into Marcus. "We did it," he whispered. Marcus smiled, his eyes bright. "No, you did." But Elliot knew the truth. They'd done it together. And in that moment, under the weight of his father's love and a town's slow healing, Elliot finally felt at home.